Hey everybody, welcome back to another Krita class tutorial. Today we're going to continue our vector series, but today we're going to focus on comic sound effects text and if we can recreate it within Krita. So I have the two samples here of what we will have for the outcome. I just put placeholder because I don't know. It's too long of a word to choose, but I chose it. But we can kind of see what we can do in Krita. And I have this simple one here, which is based off of this comic page. So we're going to try and recreate some comic lettering that's actually from actual comics that I scan these pages in, as you can see, lovely scan bed here. This is from Sabretooth #2. The letterer is Richard Starkings, and then this is Who Goes There in the Starstream comics, which is a collection of short stories. And I didn't see any letterer credit, so I'm not sure if the artist Jake Abel did the letters as well as the art. I couldn't find anything that said who the letterer was. But we are going to do something simple and then something a little bit more complex. It requires more effort. So I will caveat that to say that normally I wouldn't recommend Krita for vector stuff like this because the tools currently are limited. However, I know that going forward they're working on more advanced text options. However, there is a lot you can do within Krita with lettering, and I think it's worth showing what you can do. It requires a little bit more effort, a little bit more testing and work, but it is very doable. So we're going to get started with our lettering right now. We're going to start with the simple one first, and then go from there. Alright, so as always, we want to go and add our vector layer, and because I'm using a reference to try and recreate this, I have these scans in as a reference image. So if you don't know how to use the reference image tool, it's this little pin icon. You go to tool options, you just click on the plus icon and add in your reference images, and you can lower the opacity and saturation if you don't want to deal with the color for some reason, all that good stuff. I have a video on it somewhere on my YouTube channel if you want to go look at it more in depth, but for today we're not doing that. So I am going to lower the opacity, and the reason is because if I don't, everything I do with my vector is going to be behind the reference image, and I don't want that to happen. And I'm going to focus on sound effect. I don't know if I said this right, but whatever. We're going to do that. And the reason I'm going to start with something simple is just to kind of get ourselves really familiar with the vector options and using the tools. So we're going to use the Bezier curve. And I will say, if you look closely at this, this is not perfectly straight lines. We have a little bit of thicker lines in some places because this is hand lettered. They're not using any digital tools to like type it out. You can even see the O's. It's different here in the middle, different sizes. So if you want to keep that, I'll show you how to tweak some of this at the end. But for now, I'm just going to do some straight Bezier curves, block this out, and then I will show you how to do all the fancy stuff after. So that we have copied letters and spacing, and it's mostly accurate. It's not perfect, but close enough. We're going to take our reference image here. We're going to raise the opacity just so we can actually see it, and I'm going to actually enlarge my text here. Just selecting all the letters, hitting the shift key, and then scaling this up. And I also want to add a new vector layer just to make life a little bit easier when I start layering things. We go to the main one, click on the letter. I'm going to go ahead and change the outline color to, change the outline color to black. Perfect. And then I'm going to click on the points. I'm going to start making them to be curved. And reduce the thickness. I think that's pretty good, and we can go ahead and start making a lot of these just have slight curves to them. And the nice thing about this is by doing this, we can add like imperfection to the lettering, so it looks similar to the handmade. You can see how it's not like perfect, perfectly straight. It just adds a little bit more to it. It looks nicer. All right, now the downfall is I can't add like a variable thickness to this. So to fake that, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to my new vector layer and paste it there. I'm going to take the stroke off and just fill this with black. And we can go ahead and just reposition this a little bit. So now we can see there's a little bit more thickness at the top. We're just kind of winging it. It's not perfect by any means, but we can go ahead and adjust it now and make this a little thicker in specific areas. Maybe we want it thicker over here. Or maybe like if you think about like writing this out or outlining it with an actual pen, maybe the line is gonna be thicker as you're moving it down. So you can see how that looks really nice. And then obviously if you want to have this a nicer curve, we can go ahead and modify that curvature a little bit. So it looks pretty nice, right? So now we have a little bit of variation in the thickness without any option to actually do that within Krita at this moment, but we can kind of fake it. And then we can go back and do that, just do the outline for all the other letters. There we go. And then we want the outline on the other letters. We're going back to our main vector layer here with the letters and changing that outline. And we're just going to try and keep it the same. The 2 is good. But now we have to reposition the O's. So it looks like, so this is the first, this is the middle, and the last. Just click on it, bring to front, and we can send this to back. So now everything, I'm going to send this to back as well. So now everything is pretty much similar to the original. Obviously we changed the thickness of the line on the K, just to show how it was done, but you can do the same thing here. So some other things we can do is going to be taking away the vector ability. So what I would recommend is making a duplicate of this so you always have a base to go back to. I'm just going to duplicate that. Right click on it, duplicate. And we're going to convert the copy to a paint layer. So that we have that done, we can go right click and go to layer styles. And now we can modify the overall look. We can do a bevel and gloss, we can do an outer bevel, kind of change this up a little bit. You can see how cool that looks, right? We can do an outer glow. These are things that you couldn't do with the vector layers. But I do like the inner shadow, that looks pretty cool. And if you wanted to change that, you can go to your blend mode, go to normal. You can actually just change that to white. So we have a similar, I mean this edge here, lighter edge and the letters, I don't think that was intentional, but we can pretend like it is. We can modify that. Alright, so I went and changed that. Now if you like the black outline, you want to keep that, you can actually move your vector layer up, select all of this, and take the fill off. So now you have your vector outline over top of your letters. Going down follows, you have this here. So you would probably want to go back to your vector layers and then, let's see, click on this, we'll click a point, select those 2 points, and you want to break those segments. Yeah, there we go. You can just modify this so there we go. Obviously you need to tweak it a little bit more obviously, but you get the idea. You can go ahead and break the points and move them around so things aren't overlapping and it looks better. But yeah, that's how you can kind of recreate something simple, and we're gonna do something more complex with trying to recreate this. So I'm just going to group these layers together. All right, so now that we have this grouped and this is all good and ready to go, we can hide that. We're gonna start something a little bit more complex with this wiggly lines. It'll be a little more difficult to do with Vector and Krita, but we can get something similar. And what I would do, this is what I would recommend, is to start with a font for this that already has a little bit of this distortion in the line. So we're gonna make our new vector layer for this. We're in the text tool, click and drag, wait for this to pop up. I'm going to make this larger so we can see. Perfect. And I have a couple fonts that I wrote down to use, which might work. The first one is Bad Ink. So I'm just going to type it in here. Oh, there it is. So you can see here how it has like distortion in the edges. It looks, I don't want to say bad, but it looks distorted, right? So we can use this one. The next one I have is Creep Stick. There we go. This is a more drastic option. And then we have Dead End. You can kind of see a theme here. Let's see. There we go. Dead End. When this one's a little it has more distortion, but it's not as drastic. I'm gonna go with this one. I'm actually gonna see it do a bold so we can actually have more wiggle room to adjust things. And I'm just gonna type, all right, I guess we'll do the same. Okay, we're gonna hit save and close. So now we have the text. It's not like, again, one-to-one to what this is, but it's a good starting point. It's not perfect. Like when we go to vectorize this, this is going to be an issue, so we're going to clean this up. So we're going to go ahead and convert shapes to vector selection and hit to path, group. So now we can go ahead and modify this. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to delete these points because it's just too much. Come on, that one. There we go. Just going to move that back just because it was a little out there and I knew it would give me issues. Great, so we have this lovely text. We're going to add an outline for it. Just like before. I'm going to actually make this a little bit thicker. Oh, we have some issues here. Let's see. Looks like it's not connected. There we go. Just deleted that point. Now it's cleaned up. So I'm going to go through and just kind of clean up a few more points here just to avoid any weird gaps that I'm seeing. All right, so now we have this beautiful line, right? I'm actually going to make this a little bit thicker. All right, so we have this now. So what I'm going to do is do something that we did before, which is duplicate this. I'm actually going to kind of try and copy this. So we're going to, let's see, black outline, fill, and then black again. All right, so we're going to reduce the outline on this one. Let's make it thinner. I think that should be fine. And then the top layer, I'm actually going to remove the outline. Oops. And just keep it filled. We're going to start scaling this down a little bit. Actually fill that with black. I'm not going to try and line this up to be perfect because we're going to have to modify it anyway. Alright. Double click on it and start moving the letters so they kind of rest on top of the background. And then I'm just going to have to manually adjust everything to make it fit within the outline. Alright, so I'm back and I did 2 letters and I'm not doing up anymore just because it's very tedious. But I want to move on to how we can modify this even more and get some cool effects going like I showed you in the beginning. So what we're going to do is, obviously this isn't like perfect, it's not one-to-one by any means. We actually need to do that. So I'm going to actually move some of these letters over. Alright, so if you wanted to join these, you can. I will say that because we used an existing font, it may get a little wonky, so I'm just going to show you how that looks. If we break these two at the segment, break it point, or even at the point, you can see it starts doing some weird things here with the fill. Even if you rejoin them, it fixes it, but it's not going to fix if you merge these two together. So technically you'd want to be able to merge them here at the point and it would make them one shape. But you still have some wonkiness going on. And that's just because we used a pre-existing font. You would have to go in and either redo the outline or just manually clean it up, which is a pain. So just keep that in mind if you want to do that. It might require a little bit of manual effort on your part. Just like we did before with the last vector board, we're going to convert the fill here to a paint layer. And I'm actually going to erase a little bit in the middle, blocking the transparency, just to kind of like match what we did before, like the scribbliness here. Nowhere near it, but you get the idea. We can go ahead and modify it and get a nice, interesting look to our letters just by that alone, using a mix of vector and the rasterized vector. What we can also do is go to our filter and gimmick tool. Now it's been a while since I did a video with this filter tool, And I definitely recommend going to watch my series on it because there's a lot in this filter you can use. Like a lot. So I'm just going to go over a couple options that had a really interesting effect on the letters here that I think you may want to use for your own lettering. So as you can see, if we open it up, it opens up the last filter I used, which is under deformations and breaks. So it breaks up the letters here, or the rasterized image, into just a really neat effect. You can go ahead and modify the smoothness, the frequency, the amplitude, which is craziness here, a little strong. You do relief, so it has a more warped effect to it. We're going to reduce the frequency a little bit, lower the smoothness. You can see how it has a weird effect to it, right? And I put a couple other options down that might look neat. So I have felt pen. Looks a little weird. Has an interesting look. You can see it adds a little bit of some white in here. If I reduce the smoothness, raise the opacity, edge, all that. Thickness. We're gonna actually reduce that. Just interesting effects. So you had cubism, which I thought looked really neat. So you can see how this would look. If we kept it, let's see it. I'm gonna increase the density but lower the iterations. Come on. 2, 3, let's change the angle. Let's lower the opacity a little bit. Increase it a little bit more. Thickness. It's not too much. There we go. I'm gonna hit apply. We're gonna wait for it to process. The gimmick tools, some of them take a little while. All right, so now we have our weird gimmick filter that we used, and we have the vector underneath. So I'm gonna turn the vector off just so we can see it, and you can see how weird this looks, but it has a really cool effect. Maybe the scene calls for something weird like this. You know, something's breaking, glass is breaking. But with the vector underneath, we can start modifying like outlines. So if we wanted to change the outline to white, or maybe we want to change it to, let's see, let's keep it black. You can change the fill to maybe a darker gray. Ooh, that looks kind of cool. To kind of signify like this might be a glass breaking or something. Totally not the right sound effect for it, but that's fine. But you can see how you get some really cool effects for comic sounds with using a combination of vector, the rasterized vector that you've modified, and then using the gimmick filter tools to add a little bit more flair to it. And we also have sketch, which will get a really interesting scratchy look, like, you know, you're sketching it out, which is similar to what we were looking at. However, we want to make this a little bit more dense. So we're going to raise that up so it's closer. Alright, so I just went and reset it just to see what it looked like by default and then change the opacity. So I think this gives me close enough to what I'm looking for. I'm going to hit OK so it applies and we're going to wait for it to go. Alright, so now we have this really cool scratchy effect on the letters for the inside. You can see just how cool that looks. Like it does look pretty neat. So it's I say it's kind of similar, but obviously this is not as drastic as what I just did. But with a little bit of effort and tweaking the settings, you can get a less intense effect. We can see how that looks too. If I take the vector off, this is just the letters by itself. It just looks neat. So you were able to take the vector, convert it to a rasterized image, and make it even cooler looking. So there's a lot of potential here for lettering your comic within Krita and doing some cool effects without too much manual like drawing and inking and things like that. Alright, another thing you can do to get like that pattern is you go to layer style and go to pattern overlay. You can start picking out some textures here. You can see it's not like as nice looking because it's very it's repeatable, so it doesn't have like a lot of fun modifications. But if it's something that you want to do, like some of these warped ones are pretty cool. I like these. You do that. And that would add a nice, interesting effect to your lettering as well. Maybe you want to do some dots, do some broken glass, which is pretty neat. Lots of things you can do. But fortunately, they're not vector. It's just after you make your final vector, lettering. But it's something I recommend trying out just to see what it looks like. You never know what you're going to come up with. Alright, that looks pretty neat. You can change the blend mode, all that good stuff. Alright, so that's it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. I will do my best to answer them. And hopefully you can go and experiment with the gimmick tool in Krita and all the layer styles and things like that to make some cool lettering in Krita. So for your homework, I would recommend making some cool vector letters, either drawing them from scratch and vectorizing and working with that, or copying something that from an existing comic to see if you can recreate it yourself using the tools that are available. And you can share it with everybody in my Discord down below. The link is there. There's a Krita class channel just for that. And I will see you there, hopefully. And if not, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you then.